Level Rise Conference, and I believe our own Commissioner Meyer will be presenting, right?
Yes.
Did you want to stay there or step to the podium? Just wherever you're more comfortable.
I think I can stay here. I do have a few handouts.
Awesome.
There are some for the audience too. If anyone is interested in either of these articles, you can pass them around. There are two of them.
Just to give a quick background while he's getting seated. Three of our fellow commissioners, Commissioner Meyer, Commissioner McBoy, and Commissioner Maxwell, all attended the C-Level conference, and I'm so very pleased to have a presentation. Thank you, Commissioner Meyer.
Thank you, and I won't take up too much of your time this evening. I see we have a full house. I just wanted to take the opportunity, the city did send us to the conference, and I just wanted to bring back some of the crucial information that I learned there. So I'm passing out two articles right now. The one that I'll be referencing most is the one from the New York Times. It says, Senate passes bill to delay spike in flood insurance rates. During my commissioner comments at the last meeting, I touched briefly on this. One thing that I learned there is that while we here in Palm Beach County may not start to see the inundating effects of sea level rise for perhaps 40 to 50 years, something that will happen much sooner, in about 10 to 15 years, is the potential bankruptcy of the federal flood insurance program, which funds FEMA. Now, in 2012, the federal government enacted a plan to overhaul the nearly bankrupt federal flood insurance program, shifting the burden for buildings in coastal areas to the private market. After a series of hurricanes, the program in 2014 was $24 billion in the hole. Currently, it's $31 billion in the hole, and that's not including this year's numbers. So in 2014, the government came back and decided that this burden needed to be shifted back to the federal flood insurance program because they realized that there was going to be a huge spike in the private market for flood insurance. So looking forward into the future, currently, if you purchase a home, you have to have that home inspected, and through that inspection, they determine what will be your expenses over the 30 years or 50 years of your mortgage. Currently, we have the federal flood insurance program, which caps flood insurance at $250,000. Now, most of us here in Lake Worth are not looking at properties that are over that, but definitely there are some properties here that are over that. Currently, the banking industry does not require that you have additional insurance, but it looks very likely in the near future that you will be required to carry additional flood insurance when you purchase a home. Potentially, in the coming years, you may actually be required to escrow that flood insurance payment. So for many people, flood insurance shifting to, now this is currently in the public sector, if the federal flood insurance program does go bankrupt, and it does ultimately shift to the private sector, then you may be required to carry the full dollar amount for the replacement of your home, which for many people would just be completely impossible. One problem that has happened, and this certainly wasn't the direct intent of the federal flood insurance program, was that in charging low rates for insurance, it has encouraged developers to build in high-risk coastal areas. Now that the insurance program is pulling back their funding and potentially won't have any funding in 10 to 15 years, one moment, I lost my place. Sorry, I got a little lost here, and I'll be honest, I'm not a numbers guy, but this did seem very crucial. So let's put it in terms of the municipality. As a city, we in the future run the risk of potential lawsuits, not only from residents, but from insurance companies. A series of them have already started. I believe it was last year, Farmers Insurance filed a lawsuit against the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois, claiming that both the city and the state were not doing enough in their development plans to protect homeowners from excess costs for flood insurance. Now that lawsuit was dismissed, but it is very likely that this will be a trend in the future and that more lawsuits like this will come up. So as a city, what we should be doing is, number one, when we have new development projects here, new construction, new infrastructure, we need to make provisions for sea level rise so that when this shift in flood insurance happens, we will be protecting our residents from these hikes in insurance costs. The other article there is just when we think of sea level rise or hear about it, we hear mostly about Miami and Fort Lauderdale. Many leaders in the scientific field, in this scientific field, believe that actually Delray has become a new high-risk area, which puts that in Palm Beach County, and so makes it something that all of us can relate to a little more closely. So I just wanted to share that with you, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
May I add a few comments to that?
Sure.
Having also, I think, listening to Commissioner Meyer and what I heard at the conference also, it certainly seems like, and I've heard this at some other occasions, I've heard comments that real estate agents can expect over time to start seeing liability responsibility or having to have insurance if they do not disclose climate change related risks in terms of real estate transactions. That's a big deal in South Florida. And that was coming from a very established law firm in Fort Lauderdale. A couple things with that conference. Some of the things that were very striking was the level of resources and expertise and staff that parts of South Florida are putting into this were really quite remarkable. A lot of imagination, a lot of forward thinking. At this point, not really any thinking of, geez, this problem is so intractable that we're just giving up, but instead much more thinking of how do we address it? How do we inform our residents? Fort Lauderdale has had a very strong program for a number of years to educate the residents and measure the level of education, whether their program was working in terms of informing people so that they were all sort of on the same page. And then developing visions for the city based on that. Something to keep in mind is that the 4-county regional climate change compact, which all 4 counties, Martin, Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County are signatories to that and actively involved both as elected officials and as staff. They've adopted a planning horizon because really, moving away from the whole political aspects, whether you believe, whether you don't believe, all that sort of stuff. The reality is there are real people in our engineering departments and in every city's engineering departments, and real people in the insurance industry and real people in real estate that have to address these issues. You can't just sort of wish them to go away. If you're putting in a pump, the city manager likes to mention that we have a tower that used to be a lift station I won't use his term for it, but a lift station for pumping sewage that we're redesigning it right now. It came to the end of its life cycle, needed to be replaced. In the process, we said, okay, what's the life cycle of that thing? And what's your planning horizon on sea level rise? Build accordingly. And the four-county climate change compact, as well as the military, the Navy especially, is very big on this. They figured out real early that the Navy's got all sorts of installations that are pretty much at sea level, old sea level. And when you got a lot of electrical stuff right at sea level, and sea level's going up, as a Navy guy, that does not make you warm and fuzzy and reassured. So they're all over it. They're thinking very seriously, and they want to know 6 inches, 12 inches. What is it? We've adopted in South Florida for the four-county thing a curve that is our best guess that we can all use as a planning tool for as you look at infrastructure. And you simply look at what's your lifespan on the infrastructure that you're replacing. Is it a 20-year lifespan? Is it a 50? Is it 100? The longer you expect that infrastructure to stick around, the higher that number you better use, because that water is creeping up. The numbers that are suggested for anything that has critical infrastructure with a design lifespan of 50 years, plan for 34 inches, that's 3 feet. 3 feet gets you into Bryant Park. By 2060, and 81 inches, somebody here can do the math, how many feet that is, but it's a fair number of them, by 2100. Well, 2100 is only 85 years out, so anything that we're putting in that's got an 85-year or 100-year lifespan, you need to be thinking about 81 inches of freeboard to make sure that you're clear. So there's a lot of active thinking going on this, a lot of active resources. We have, as a mayor, signed the mayor's pledge to the Regional Climate Action Compact, which is a good start, but we need to be moving the next step on it. The other piece that, I guess it happened right after the conference, was the Paris Agreements, which is a very major deal. In a nutshell, if it's fossil fuel, keep it in the ground. That's our only solution. You've got to keep it in the ground. And that's very relevant to us as a city, because we do our own electricity. You might think these are fluorescent lights. They're actually LED lights, so that's good. We did that a while back. Somewhere around the room there's a sign that tells you that. Big step forward, but not enough. We have to look very seriously at, I forgot to bring it, but, no, I forgot to bring it. We have to look very seriously at how we're going to generate electricity and what combination of things in this city, because we have the capability and have for many 100 years to generate our own power. An editorial in the New York Times today said the conservative case for solar energy, and made a very strong case that even if your political viewpoint is leaning toward the conservative side, you want to be on board with solar energy. Prices have come way down. You want to give people choices of fuels, and to honor our commitment to, worldwide commitment to try and keep climate change under 1.5 degrees centigrade, you simply have to keep fossil fuel in the ground. So we have our work cut out for us, but I think we can do it.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Commissioners, for your comments. I had the opportunity to attend the conference as well, and it was striking to me that, from what I could deduce from all the folks that gave their data, that the data keeps changing, and I think that's of a concern for everybody. We don't know where it's going to stop. Okay, what we think or what they think is going to happen in 2100 will be much different next year and the year after that when they continue to take their analysis. So one thing I did take away from the meeting, as trying to bring this down to our level and how proactive, reactive we should be in 2015 or 2016, as the case may be now, is that they did a study of the 300 plus coastal cities in America to determine what their risk factor was, and they ranked them based on the most immediate need to the worst or the least immediate need. And I was comforted to know that Palm Beach County is in the 200s. We're around 200. So we're way down the list. Now, obviously, Miami-Dade and Broward, they're in a different situation. But by comparison, Palm Beach County is in a much different place than Miami and Broward County. However, we still need to be sensitive to it, and I think the most important thing we can do is to continue to monitor the situation and make sure that we are, living within our means and not overreacting necessarily, and trying to model what they're doing in Miami and Broward so much, while it may be imminent for them to make some decisions and spend some money. I think we need to be sensitive to the fact that we should not just do it for the sake of doing it, that we're in a much different place than some of the other coastal communities. And we just need to keep everything in the proper context and in the proper order. So that's my comment.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your feedback on the conference. It was wonderful.